With that, I'd like to bring up the 19th Secretary of Transportation. We also call him Mayor Pete. I will now say Secretary Pete will come up. He is not only the 19th Secretary of Transportation, he's the former mayor of South Bend, Indiana. He also was a naval officer for more than 7 years, served in Afghanistan, came home to his beloved city of South Bend, and made a difference, not only in South Bend, but blazing the trail for so many to follow. It is an honor for you to be here to represent this administration and what this administration is doing to play forward this amazing legacy. Please help me in welcoming to Birmingham Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg.
Good morning, and thank you. Thanks very much. Thank you, Representative, for your leadership, for your partnership on issue after issue, and particularly, of course, as Secretary of Transportation, I'm so thankful for your hand in shaping the generational investment in infrastructure that is the bipartisan infrastructure law. It's going to make a big difference here in this district and everywhere in America, and we thank you for your hand in that. Mayor, it's an honor to be with you. As you said, I always feel like a mayor, even in wearing this new hat. Once a mayor, always a mayor. And as you know, there are few things a mayor loves more than a ribbon cutting or a celebration of completing some work. And I'm so glad to see how you have acknowledged. Every mayor, of course, gets to cut the ribbon on some of the things that their predecessor launched into motion, and then does the same with their successor in mind. So glad to see mayors you recognized and part of this program as well. I want to recognize Denise Gilmore, Senior Director of the Division of Social Justice and Racial Equity for the city. Every mayor knows how much you count on your leaders, and all of the city staff and city leadership who are part of this. And Lance Hatton with the National Park Service, who we'll hear from in a moment. Most of all, I just want to say, by way of opening, that I'm conscious that we are on hallowed ground. That this very space where we are standing now is so important in Black history, in American history, and in a fashion of history that reminds us how important the ability to move around, a motel, a refuge for travelers, how much that ability to move around is related to justice and prosperity, which of course is why we are paying so much attention to justice, to equity, to fairness in the conduct of our transportation policy. This historic place reminds us how the physical movement of people and the social movement toward progress have always been so connected. After all, it was bus boycotts, among other things, an effort to have equal and dignified access to public transportation that was among the seminal threads of the civil rights movement itself. And in the time around those boycotts, there was another affront to justice, which was the danger and indignity that Black people faced when driving. Cars were a refuge for those who already faced segregation or indignity on buses and trains, only for there to be a catch. In fact, from that jail cell in Birmingham, in that extraordinary document, that letter from Birmingham jail that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. wrote, among other things he pointed to, he described the experience in his words, quote, "When you take a cross-country drive and find it necessary to sleep night after night in the uncomfortable corners of your automobile because no motel will accept you." But there were exceptions, like A.G. Gaston, a brave, courageous, innovative business leader whose Gaston Motel became a haven for Black travelers and the site of some of the most important civil rights planning and work in U.S. history. That legacy, those memories of A.G. Gaston and Dr. King and Reverend Shuttlesworth, the examples of all of those who hallowed that ground with the work that was planned from Room 30, the War Room, which will one day be accessible for visitors from far and wide, will call everyone who sees these exhibits, all of us who are here today, and anybody with a hand on any form of decision making, anyone in a position of influence, certainly in my line of work, to examine how we are making ourselves useful to the cause of racial justice and fairness and equity. I will say right now, some would rather ignore our past, then come to terms with it in the service of a better future. As if divisions from the past that we live with today could be wished away by just not talking about them, not acknowledging them. But of course, the promise of our future depends on our relationship to the past. National parks are not just of antiquarian interest, they are urgently connecting us to the future that we're all striving toward. Because this monument will now demand an answer for every child passing by who sees the distinct design of this property and asks, "What is that?" and finds out. One thing that's been on our mind quite a bit in the Department of Transportation is how highways and rail lines, which enabled welcome mobility for black families in many ways, at the same time were often built straight through the heart of black communities, further dividing cities and leaving a legacy that still affects economic and opportunity and health outcomes today. And that is the other occasion that I have to be in Birmingham today. Later on, we will be announcing a first ever dedicated federal initiative to help reconnect communities that have been divided by the infrastructure decisions of the past. It is long past time to recognize that if taxpayer dollars serve to divide, taxpayer dollars must be used to reconnect, and that's what we're going to do with this initiative. And we will be announcing this alongside the Birmingham Express Bus Rapid Transit Project, which is an example of the kind of progress that is deeply important for connecting people to opportunity and prosperity, and we're very proud to be on hand for that. What lasts even longer than physical infrastructure is memory. In Birmingham, you are showing the nation what it means to preserve memory, to learn from it, to live with it, and to use it to build something better going forward. It was Reverend Shuttlesworth who famously said, "As Birmingham goes, so goes the nation." And I'm very inspired and encouraged, holding that in mind, by what I'm seeing right here in Birmingham. So thank you again so much for having me. Congratulations on this extraordinary achievement and this terrific work. And with that, it's my pleasure to hand it over to Lance Hatton, Acting Regional Director for the Southeast for the National Park Service. Lance.